Hello, and welcome to the study of Chapter 1. And I am going to share my PowerPoint with you, but please keep in mind that there is an extended version of this PowerPoint in your weekly lesson content area. This is just a brief mini lecture introduction to Chapter 1. Alrighty, welcome to the study of one of the most fascinating subjects possible, your own body. Such a study is not only highly personal, but timely as well. We get news of medical advance almost daily during this COVID-19 pandemic and how this virus is affecting young adults, children, and elderly in different ways. To appreciate emerging discoveries in molecular genetics, as far as to understanding new techniques for detecting and treating disease, and to make use of published facts on how to stay healthy, you'll find it helps to learn more about the workings of your human body. If you are preparing for a career in the health sciences, applied health sciences, or the medical field, the study of anatomy and physiology has added rewards because it provides the essential foundation for your clinical experiences. This first slide introduces us to our first anatomical term, which is our complementarity of structure and function. Anatomy means the structure, the study of the structure, the parts of the human body, and physiology is going to be the study of the function of those structures, those parts. So complementarity is the concept for structure and function where we learn how you can't have structure without function, how they are going to be interrelated, intertwined throughout the entire study of the human body. In this PowerPoint session, we will also study the hierarchy of structural organization, as well as you will grasp the concept of homeostasis within your extended PowerPoint. Okay? And finally, you'll learn the language of anatomy, the terminology that anatomists will use to describe the body and its parts. Okay? So if we take a look at this diagram, if you can see my pointer here, there's two diagrams of the same individual. Now what we're looking at are the structures. The structures are the teeth. You have several different types of teeth. The teeth that we're seeing here are the incisors, and the teeth that you're seeing here in the second diagram will be the molars. So those are the structures, the parts, the anatomy of the oral cavity of the digestive system. Now the function of those structures, the function of those different types of teeth are going to be determined by their structure, by their anatomy. So the incisors that you see here are going to be ideal for cutting, like scissors. So you can see that she's going to ingest this or place this carrot inside of her oral cavity, inside of her mouth, and she's going to use her incisors to cut it into two large pieces. But it's going to be the molars, the very back teeth, or posterior for back, that's going to be ideal for grinding. So the structure, the anatomy of the part is going to determine its function. Okay? This slide is going to represent the structural organization or the hierarchy of how we're going to study the human body. There are several different levels, and we're going to start at the simplest level. The simplest level will be our chemical level, that's chemistry, which is sometimes required for most of the career paths that we're taking. So our chemical is going to include our atoms, our elements, our molecules, all the things that anything that's living and non-living will be made up of. That will then produce our cellular level, and our cells are going to be the smallest components of living structures within the human body. And we have millions and millions and millions of cells within the body, and they're going to have these microscopic structures that are going to be called organelles. And so that will be our cellular level. Cells are made up of molecules, meaning that they're made up of the chemical level. So without this chemical level, we wouldn't have our cellular level. And without our cellular level, we wouldn't have our next level, which is our tissue level. There's 4 major tissue types found in the human body, and those tissues are made up of cells. The tissue level will then lead to our next level, which is the organ level, Organs such as your lungs, your heart, will be made up of tissues. Those tissues are made up of cells, and those cells are made up of our chemicals. From the organ level, we're going to get groups of organs together, and they're going to make an organ system. So one of our organ systems, we have 11 or 12 within the human body. And each one of those organ systems are going to have a group of organs that will make it up. Those organs will be made of tissues, tissues will be made up of cells, and cells will be made up of chemicals. So our digestive system is going to be made up of your stomach, your intestines. So those are two organs that are going to be a part of the organ system. So an organ system is going to consist of different organs that are going to work together closely to carry out the function of that particular system. Another system will be your cardiovascular system. Another one will be your nervous system, and so on and so on. All of those organ systems are going to make up you. They're going to make up our last and most complex level of the human body, which is the organism. The organism is you, the human body, and it is made up of many, many, many organ systems. And as I mentioned, we have 11. Those organ systems are made up of organs. Organs are made up of tissues. Tissues are made up of cells, and cells are made up of chemicals. So that is the structural organization, or the hierarchy, of how we study the human body. So let's study those systems. So let's start with our integumentary system. This is our integumentary system, and you can see in the diagram those structures that are going to make up the integumentary system. We have our skin, which is the largest organ of the human body. Hair and nails will make up this system. So our function of our integumentary system is to form the external body covering, so it's going to protect our internal environment of the human body, the external environment, and it protects deeper tissues from injury. Our skin is also going to function to produce vitamin D for us and house our cutaneous receptors, such as our pain receptors, our touch receptors, our pressure receptors. And our skin is also going to house our sweat glands and our oil glands that we're going to use to regulate the physiological components of the inner workings of the body. So our integumentary system will be the first system of the human body. So what's covered in blue will be your integumentary system, and we'll study this in greater detail as we progress throughout the semester. Then we have our skeletal system. Our skeletal system is made up of our bones and our joints. Our bones, we will have 206 bones that will make up the human adult skeleton. The functions of this system is to protect and support our body organs. It is also going to help form the framework for the body. It is also going to serve as attachment sites for our muscles. And it is also going to be the site where we're going to produce our blood cells. Our blood cells, such as our red blood cells, our white blood cells, and our platelets, which are going to be produced in our bone marrow. And our bone marrow is found within our bones. Okay. The skeletal system, the bones are also going to be used to store our minerals, such as calcium and phosphorus. And so what's highlighted in blue here will be all 206 of your bones found within the skeletal system. Our next system will be the muscular system. We have over 700 muscles within the human body. The functions of the muscles are to allow manipulation of your environment so that you can move. Muscles are going to contract in order to produce movement. So we're going to have locomotion. Muscles are also going to contract to produce facial expression. So when you frown, it is also going to help us maintain our posture. So if you are sitting in your chair listening to this PowerPoint video, then you're maintaining your posture in your seat. So our muscles are going to help do that. Our muscles also will provide or produce heat for us to regulate our body temperature. So everything that's in blue will be your muscles. And we will also talk about our muscle tissue and our muscles as we progress through the semester. The next system will be your nervous system. Our nervous system is going to include our brain, our spinal cord, and then the nerves. So that will be our cranial nerves from the brain and our spinal nerves from the spine. So there's your brain, here's your spinal cord, and you can see the spinal nerves that are progressing from it. Our nervous system is the major controlling system of the human body. So out of the 11, 12 systems, it is the number one controlling system of the human body. It is fast acting, and it is going to allow us to communicate and respond to internal and external changes by activating appropriate muscles and glands. So everything that's in blue, our brain, and then there's your spinal cord, and then you can see all the nerves that are going to progress throughout the human body, represent your nervous system. Then we have our endocrine system. Endocrine system will start the remainder of the systems of the human body that you will discuss in Anatomy and Physiology 2. But nonetheless, you still need to be aware of the systems that make up the human body, as well as their functions and what organs are found within them. So you can see all of the endocrine glands that are found within our endocrine system. So we have our pituitary gland, we have our pineal gland, we have our thyroid gland, we have the thymus, we have our adrenal gland that sits on the superior aspect of the kidneys, and you have the pancreas, and you have the ovaries found in the female, and the testes found in the male. The endocrine system is going to include all of these endocrine glands that I just mentioned, and their function is to secrete hormones. And these hormones are going to regulate physiological processes such as growth, reproduction, metabolism of all the cells of the body. So here are the glands highlighted in blue. And our endocrine system is going to be the second major controlling system of the human body. It is going to be second to our nervous system, which is first. And the nervous system, if you recall, is fast acting. However, your endocrine system, because these glands are going to secrete hormones into the bloodstream, and then they're going to travel to their target that they're going to carry out their physiological process, is going to act a little slower. Here is the cardiovascular system, and you can see that the cardiovascular system is made up of the heart. It is also made up of your blood vessels. The blue vessels are going to be indicative of your veins. The red vessels are going to be indicative of your arteries. The cardiovascular system is going to allow blood to be transported through the blood vessels throughout the body to carry oxygen, carbon dioxide, nutrients, waste, and those hormones that were secreted by the endocrine glands from the endocrine system. And the heart itself is also going to pump blood in order to do that. So what's highlighted in blue here would be the blood vessels, and there's the heart. So that's your cardiovascular system. Our next system would be our lymphatic system, and then we also have another system that is also often paired with the lymphatic system, which is the immune system. So that's why I keep saying either 11 or 12 body systems, because the immune system can be counted as one as well if it's not paired with the lymphatic system. So this is the system, or these are the systems that are going to protect us from COVID-19. These are the body systems that are going to protect us from the influenza virus that's coming up this season. It is also what's going to protect us from, say, strep throat, from the Streptococcus aureus bacterium. Okay, so our lymphatic system is going to pick up fluid leaked from blood vessels and returns it to the blood. It disposes of debris in the lymphatic stream. It houses our white blood cells, and it is involved in immunity. The immune response is going to mount. That's going to attack against any foreign substance within the body. So this is our lymphatic system and our immune system. And the organs that are found within this system will include your thymus, your spleen, your lymph nodes, and your lymphatic vessels. The red bone marrow is also part of this system because it has the bone marrow, which is going to produce our white blood cells for us. And everything that you see in blue here would be a part of our lymphatic system. So there's your spleen, and you can see that you only have one, and it's in your left upper quadrant in your abdomen. There's the thymus. All of these little skinny squiggly lines are your lymphatic vessels. Here's your bone marrow found in the femur here, in your thigh. And then you also have these enlarged nodules alongside your lymphatic vessels. Those are your lymph nodes, And if you recall ever having a cold, you can feel those lymph nodes like right under your chin area or behind your ear. That is the lymphatic system. Then we have our respiratory system, and you can see that your nasal cavity, your nose, your pharynx, which is the throat, the larynx, which is your voice box, your trachea, which is your windpipe, and then the actual two lungs. We have a right lung and a left lung. And then the diaphragm, which is this dome-shaped muscle here, is also going to be a part of our respiratory system. So we know the respiratory system is what's going to help us exchange gases with the environment. So it keeps blood constantly supplied with oxygen and removes the waste carbon dioxide by allowing us to breathe in and breathe out. So inhale and exhale. And these exchanges will occur through the walls of the air sacs of the lungs. So this is the respiratory system. And what you see in blue is your respiratory tract, okay? And it ends with your two lungs, your right lung and your left lung. Here's our digestive system. You can see that your oral cavity, so your mouth, your tongue, your teeth, your glands that are found in your oral cavity will be a part of the digestive system. The pharynx, the throat, the esophagus that connects to the stomach. You have your liver, your gallbladder, your pancreas, your small intestines, your large intestines. Your large intestine is going to make its way down to the rectum and the anus. So this is your digestive system tract. It breaks down food into absorbable units that enter the blood for distribution to our body cells. And whatever is not digested and absorbed, we are going to eliminate as species. So this is your digestive system, highlighted in blue. So you can see that oral cavity region. Here's your esophagus, and then your abdominal cavity structures. So your liver, your stomach, your pancreas, your gallbladder, your small intestines, your large intestine, and the rectum and the anus. Everything highlighted in blue. And our next system will be the urinary system. The urinary system we know is going to allow us to eliminate urine from the body. Not only urine, but we'll also eliminate waste, nitrogenous waste from the body. And we're going to do that via our two kidneys. We have two kidneys found in our abdominal region. Those kidneys are going to produce urine and waste, and they are going to rid the kidneys of that waste by this structure here called the ureter. The ureter. The ureter is going to empty its waste into your urinary bladder, and then your bladder is going to eliminate it into your commode via the urethra, okay? The kidneys are also going to help regulate water, electrolytes, and regulate our acid-base balance of the blood. So our urinary system does a little bit more functioning and physiological processes than just producing urine. Very, very, very important system of the body. So what's highlighted in blue will be your urinary system. Here's your right kidney. Here's your left kidney. These are your ureters. You have two because you have two kidneys. You have one bladder, and then you have a urethra that's going to eliminate the urine and the waste from the body. Our next system, or our last system, will be the reproductive system. And your anatomy textbook, or e-text, is going to break it up into the female reproductive system and the male reproductive system. So what you're viewing now is your male reproductive system, and you can see some of the organs that are going to make up this system include the prostate gland, the penis, the testes, the scrotum, the vas or ductus deferens will be found here in the male reproductive system. The function of this system is to produce offspring, okay, which is one of the mechanisms of life, is to reproduce. So our testes will produce sperm. They will also produce the male sex hormone testosterone, and also the sperm will travel into the female reproductive system, where it's going to go through the process of fertilization to produce an offspring. The female reproductive system is also going to function to produce offspring. You need both the female and the male reproductive structures in order to go through the process of fertilization and produce offspring. Here, the female organs will be the ovary, the uterus, the vagina, the fallopian tubes. All of those structures are going to help produce estrogen and progesterone, which are the female sex hormones, to carry out all the physiological processes that goes on in the female reproductive system. Also, what you see here will be the mammary glands, and the mammary glands are found inside of breasts. Males also have breasts too, but they're not functional. The mammary glands are going to produce milk for nourishing the newborn through breastfeeding. So those are your 11, 12 body systems of anatomy. And what's highlighted in blue are those organs for the male and the female reproductive system. Okay. So now let's just take a look at some of our directional terms. So all of the diagrams that you saw up until this point, those models of the human body were in something called the anatomical position. So make sure that you look up what anatomical position is, reading through the more detailed PowerPoint to see what anatomical position is and how important it is for us. Okay? So our directional terms in the anatomical position, our first group will be anterior and posterior. Anterior and posterior. Anterior is toward the front of the body. Posterior is towards the back of the body. Our second group of terms will be superior and inferior. Superior is anything towards the top of the body, so towards the head. Inferior is anything towards the bottom of the body, towards the feet. Here's our third group of terms, medial and lateral. So if you take an imaginary line and just put it between your eyes, pass through your nose, pass through the center of your chest, and pass through your legs, that is our imaginary line. That's called the midline of the human body. And anything towards that midline is considered medial, meaning that it's in the middle. Anything further away from that midline is considered lateral. So if we wanted to give these terms reason for such body structures as our nose or our ears, our nose will be medial, our ears will be lateral. Okay? Our breast will be medial, our shoulder will be lateral. In the anatomical position, your pinky finger will be considered medial, whereas your thumb is considered lateral. So your pinky is considered closer to the midline of the, so it's medial, whereas your thumb is considered further away, so it's lateral. Our next group will be proximal and distal, and when we describe these terms, we are only talking about our limbs, our appendages. So that is your right and left upper arms, and well, your right and left arms and your right and left leg. Okay, so all of the structures that's along the length of your arm and along the length of your leg. Proximal means in close proximity. Well, what is it in close proximity to? It's in close proximity to the attachment of your torso. So your arms are attached to your torso at the shoulder joint. Your legs are attached to your torso at the hip joint. So anything closer to the hip joint and the shoulder joint is considered proximal. Now anything further away from them will be considered distal. Anything further away from your shoulder, anything further away from your hip is considered distal, distant. So your hand and your wrist is distal in comparison to your elbow, in comparison to your shoulder. So your shoulder is the most proximal, your fingertips is the most distal. Your hip is the most proximal, your toes are the most distal. And our last group of terms will be deep and superficial. So we said that our skin, that is the largest organ of the body, is going to be made up of our integumentary system. And our skin happens to be the most superficial structure of the human body. It's found towards the surface of the body, and anything considered deeper to that or more internal will be deep, okay, away from the body surface. It's more internal. Deep is internal, superficial is external. So if we wanted to go into the body, into the internal anatomy, and talk about the bones and the muscles, remember I told you that the bones are going to serve as attachment sites for the muscles. So that means that the muscles overlie your bones. So that means that your muscles will be superficial to the deeper bones. Okay? And you will also learn regional terms. Regional terms to describe body parts, anatomical structures. Okay? So here, this is frontal, and you can see that we can also characterize this as being anterior. Auricular would be your ears. Cranial describes your head, both anterior and posterior. Facial describes your face, so your facial expressions when you're frowning or smiling. Occipital is opposite of frontal. Occipital is the back, so it's posterior. Mental is your chin. Nasal is your nose region. Oral is your mouth region. Orbital is your eye region. Parietal is superior but lateral part of the top of your head. Temporal is the lateral but inferior part of your head. Zygomatic will be your cheeks. And buccal will also be, well, zygomatic will describe your cheekbones. Buccal will describe the cheek area of the oral cavity. Cervical means neck region, and you can see that there's an anterior view as well as the cervical posterior view. Thoracic describes chest region. So thoracic region is your entire chest. You can see within your thoracic region, you have your pectoral region. These are your pectoralis major muscles. Also within your thoracic region, you have your axillary region. Axillary is going to be your armpits. And also sitting medial to your pectoral region will be your sternal region. This is where your sternum lies, that hard breastbone that separates your right chest from your left chest. Chest means thoracic. Here's your back or posterior regions. So back, thoracic. What's highlighted here on the back region or the posterior thoracic region will be your scapular region. You also have a bone called the scapula there. Medial to the scapular region will be your vertebral region. That's where your vertebrae are going to be. That's going to surround and protect your spinal cord. Inferior to your vertebral region, you're going to have the sacral region. Lateral to the inferior region of your vertebral region will be your lumbar region. You can see that they're on either side of that vertebral region. That vertebral region is straight here in the medial region here, and lateral on both sides will be your lumbar region. Your right kidney and your left kidney is found in the lumbar region of this area. Okay. Then we have our upper limb regions. What's highlighted in blue here will be your deltoid, also referred to as shoulders, also referred to your acromial region. What's highlighted in blue in the second diagram will be your brachial. Brachial means arm. What's highlighted in blue in the third picture will be your antecubital. Antecubital, anterior and posterior will be your elbow. Antebrachial, you can see is your forearm. Ante is fore, brachial is arm, so this is your forearm identified here. The region that you're seeing here that we know as our wrist is known as the carpal region. And then you can see that the palms of the hand in this anatomical position view is going to be called the palmar region. And you can see that the fingertips are highlighted in the very last diagram, and they are the digits, digital region, or also called the phalanges. The lower limb regions, okay, so you can see your thigh region, both anterior and posterior, that is your femoral region. Your anterior knee region is called the patellar. The patellar is your anterior knee region. Your posterior knee region is called the popliteal. Your lower leg is called crural. Let's go back up to the femoral region, and lateral to that, we have our pelvic region anteriorly. Posteriorly, you will have your gluteal region, your buttocks region. We've already seen popliteal, posterior knee. And we are again still posterior, and this is our heel region that's identified in blue. That's your calcaneal region. Okay. And both anterior and posterior, the ankle region will be your tarsus region. So what's highlighted in blue, both these diagrams are representing your anatomical position. Anatomical position, body is standing up, erect, facing forward. Arms are slightly apart, facing forward. The palms of the hand are facing anteriorly or forward. Feet or legs are also slightly apart, and the toes are facing forward or anterior. This is the anatomical position. This is how one would view or observe the anatomy of the human body in the healthcare setting. The human body can lay in anatomical position on its belly in what we call the prone position. When the anatomical position of the human body is also laying down, but the back is lying flat against the surface, it is called the supine position. So belly up here instead of belly down. That is the supine position. Okay. We can also break up the human body into planes. Please be familiar with all of the planes. So this is the coronal or the frontal plane, and this is when we divide the body from the top of the head all the way down to the feet. Vertically, where we're going to get an anterior view and a posterior view. This is a transverse plane where we're going to have a horizontal cut from the right arm to the left arm, and we're going to have a superior view and an inferior view. Here is a mid-sagittal plane where we have a cut not equal or unequal to the midline of the body, where we get a right half and a left half, a right half and a left half. So here's the same type of cut, sagittal, and you can see there's the unequal cut. I'm sorry. The previous slide was the equal cut. There's your equal cut where you have equal rights and equal lefts. Here you have unequal right and an unequal left. Okay. And then we have our oblique plane. This is done anywhere on the body, but it's a diagonal cut, Okay. Please be familiar with the body cavities in the serous membranes. So this is going to be a slide representing our dorsal cavity, which is one of the major body cavities. Dorsal is going to include our cranial cavity, where we're going to house our brain. And it is also going to include our vertebral cavity, where it's going to house our spinal cord. These two cavities, cranial cavity and vertebral cavity, are going to make up your major body cavity called the dorsal cavity. We also have a ventral cavity. And your ventral cavity is going to be divided into your thoracic cavity, your abdominal pelvic cavity. However you want to learn this is fine. You can learn it as individual. abdominal cavity and a pelvic cavity, or you could just leave them together. But our ventral cavity is made up of the thoracic cavity, your abdominal cavity, and your pelvic cavity. Okay? Remember, thoracic was chest, so there's your chest area, and your abdominal pelvic cavity will be inferior to that dome-shaped muscle, the diaphragm. So it is this diaphragm that separates the thoracic cavity from your abdominal pelvic region. Your mediastinum is the medial region of the thoracic cavity. Mediastinum is the medial region of the thoracic cavity. Our abdominal pelvic cavity, so that's everything below the diaphragm, inferior to the diaphragm, can be broken up into 4 quadrants, okay? Now, when we are observing the human body, remember it is always in the anatomical position. So you're looking at the screen, and take a look here. Your right is the model's left. Your left is the model's right, okay? So always be cognizant or aware of that when you are taking an exam, okay? So that when you have to describe if it's a right anatomical structure or a left anatomical structure, that your right is their left and their left is your right, okay? So here is the right upper quadrant. Here's the right lower quadrant. Here's the left upper quadrant. Here is the left lower quadrant, okay? And all of that is in anatomical position. And what's important to know is that there are different organs of the abdominal pelvic region that are found in those quadrants. So in this right upper quadrant here, you can find the liver, you can find the right half of the stomach, the ascending colon and half of the transverse colon on the right side will also be found in the right upper quadrant. Your gallbladder will also be there. In the left upper quadrant, the other half of the stomach, remember the spleen from the lymphatic immune system was also found in the left upper quadrant. Your descending colon, which will be here. In the left lower quadrant, you're going to find your sigmoid colon. That's a part of your large intestine will be found there, and some of the urinary bladder. In your right lower quadrant, your cecum, which is the first part of the large intestine. Also, your appendix will be found there, and the other half of the urinary bladder will be found in the right lower quadrant. Okay. There are additional organs that can be found in those quadrants. Please refer to your e-test. Okay. You can see some of those that I listed here. But however, this diagram represents the 9 abdominal pelvic regions. So this same abdominal pelvic area or cavity that we just broke up into 4 quadrants can be broken up into 9 regions, okay? The 9 regions will start at the most superior region of the abdominal pelvic and go to the most inferior region of the abdominal pelvic area. We have a right side and a left side, and then you can see they're separated by this middle portion. So here's your right hypochondriac region. There's your left hypochondriac region. And in the center of those two would be epigastric. Gastric means stomach, epi means above. Let's move down. We have our right lumbar region. And on the left side, we have our left lumbar region. In between the two is your umbilical region. And your umbilical region is indicative of where your navel sits. Going to the most inferior region on the right side of the abdominal pelvic area will be your right inguinal region, or it's also called the right iliac region. And on the left side, you have the same thing, your left inguinal iliac region. In between that, or those, we have our hypogastric region. So gastro was stomach again. Hypo means below. So below the stomach is the hypogastric region. You can see those organs that are going to be found in each one of those 9 abdominal pelvic regions. So our liver will be found in the right hypochondriac region. The spleen will be found in the left hypochondriac region. The stomach, the majority of it is going to be found in the epigastric region. Let's go to our right lumbar region. Our right lumbar region, we're going to find the ascending colon. In our left lumbar region, we're going to find our descending colon. On the left inguinal iliac region, we're going to find the sigmoid colon. In that hypogastric region, we have all of our urinary bladder, and on the right inguinal-iliac region, we'll find our appendix. Okay, so just be familiar with those abdominal pelvic quadrants and our abdominal pelvic regions. Okay, so let's move on into the clinical setting, and the next slides to conclude this PowerPoint will show you medical imaging. Okay, a lot of you may be going into radiology, sonography, and these are some of the images that you will be taking that's going to illuminate the body. So instead of us having to cut open, send them to surgery to look inside of the human body to observe it and to make a diagnosis, we'll do imaging instead. So the first one that you see here will be an X-ray. And just to pause for a second, what are we X-raying? Can we see? Well, this will represent one of the human body systems, which will be the skeletal system. We can see the bones, okay? So this is an X-ray image where we're going to utilize X-rays, which are short wavelength magnetic waves, and we're going to be able to view dense structures such as bone. And you can see that the bones are going to appear white. Hollow areas that are going to be containing organs, such as the lungs, will appear as dark areas. But it's used for detecting broken bones, finding breast tumors, measuring density of bones to diagnose osteoporosis. It is a two-dimensional image, so that is a very good positive to view and to diagnose. What you see here on the right side of the slide will be an image of a CT scan, a computed tomography scan, abbreviated CT scan. And what this is going to do is be a reconstruction of computerized X-ray images. So it provides detailed cross-sectional pictures of scanned body regions. In this case, it is scanning your abdominal region. So this is an abdominal CT. It's used for imaging bones, soft tissues, and blood vessels. Okay, so you can see some of these soft tissues that can be seen. The kidney can be seen, the liver can be seen, your small intestine can be seen, and the bones that are here will be the vertebrae. Okay. Moving on to our next image, and you have 3 images on this particular slide. This very top one on the left side will be digital subtraction angiograph. This angiograph will be used to visualize our blood vessels. So you can see arteries are found on this image. And this is going to see if we have any blockage in the area. So an individual who may have just recently suffered from a heart attack, we will go on and do this angiograph to see where the blockage is in the artery, so that we can go in and place a stent that's going to widen that artery and allow continuous blood flow. The middle image here, but on the right side, is going to be MRI. MRI stands for magnetic resonance imaging. It uses powerful magnetic radio waves to image any location. It's used for imaging the brain, which you can see here, the spinal cord and nerves, to detect any abnormalities such as tumors. It can assess a joint, any ligaments, cartilage, and other soft tissues. So pretty good, but it's not used for bones. So we will be able to see inside of the brain. We will see a colored image that will let us know if there's a brain tumor anywhere here. So you can see the spinal cord there. Here's the vertebrae that surrounds and protect the spinal cord. You can see the lung found in the oral cavity. So an MRI is going to distinguish body tissues. Okay, breast. And this third image back on the left side of the slide, but at the very bottom, will be an ultrasound. This is ultrasound imaging, and it uses high frequency sound waves that reflect or echo off of the body tissues. And in this case, the body tissues will be to monitor a fetus during pregnancy, to diagnose abdominal or pelvic disorders such as gallbladder disease, or any heart valve disorders. Okay, so it can monitor movement in real time. So we have all of the specialized technology to see the baby moving in utero and also to hear the heartbeat. Okay, so those are your imaging. And here's our very last one. So you can see we have a CT scan here, but what we're most concerned with this diagram is the middle structure, which is the PET scan, PET. And that stands for positron emission tomography. And our PET scan is what's used to basically see the effect that chemotherapy may have on a cancer patient that's being treated. Okay, so it uses gamma rays that are emitted by radioactively tagged tracer molecules that will be injected into the body to detect the spread of cancer or monitoring the response to cancer treatment. But sometimes it can be used to help diagnose Alzheimer's disease and as a research tool to explore brain function. So the PET scan is a more advanced medical imaging tool that's used. Okay, and I would like to thank you for listening to this PowerPoint. Please go back and see all of the things that you need to check off for week 1. Thank you and have a good one. Bye-bye.